The Thrift Savings Plan is one of your best benefits as a federal employee. Unfortunately, not everyone is making the most of their TSP. In this episode, we're going to look at the 10 biggest TSP missteps we've seen over the years that can hopefully save you time, money, and make you feel a lot more comfortable in your saving for retirement. Welcome. I'm Ed Smith, President of Valor Wealth Partners, where we're dedicated to educating federal employees on your complex and often underutilized benefits. As we talk about the TSP today and the missteps that we've seen over the years, they are in no particular order. So don't think one is better than the other, just things that we've seen that we want to share with you. We're going to try to stay at a high level, and so there'll be some links to videos throughout the video today. So if you want a little bit more information, and we've created a video about that through our TSP tips section, you will be able to see some more information. All right. And again, if there isn't enough or you want some content, just send a comment and we'll try to make sure we have a little bit more information and we can talk a little bit more about something there. So again, we're not getting into too many details. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but not too much. Let's tackle the first area. It's either none or outdated beneficiaries. And this happens for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it happens because of when the TSP changed everything a couple years ago, they lost most people's beneficiaries on their account. So even though you think you might have beneficiaries, you definitely have to check to make sure you don't, if you do or you don't. Now, the way to be able to find this, if you look at your TSP statement, scroll down a couple pages, and it will have a yellow triangle on the left-hand side. That means that there's no beneficiaries, and it will say there's no beneficiaries. You just want to do this. Sometimes it gets outdated. With a life change or something else, you don't go in and change this. Definitely go in and just check to make sure it's there because you want to make sure the people you care about get this money. Now, some people say, well, I was advised not to put any beneficiaries there because of the order of precedent, that my spouse is going to get this or my kids are going to get this, and I don't need to put beneficiaries in there because of this. Yes, that is true. I don't like this because what this does is it puts a factor of time on your beneficiaries, meaning if it's not a clear cut, this person gets it, then TSP has to do some research to make sure that person deserves it. And that just means that the loved ones that you have are not going to get the money in a timely manner because it's going to take a while for them to make sure that they get it to the right person without that. So yes, it is true. I just don't like that area that what they talk about on that side. Number two is missing the full match. We see this quite frequently for a couple different reasons. First off, you never started doing contributions at all. Now you will get the 1% of your salary going into the G fund. That's nice if you started a long time ago and you never did this, but you're missing out a lot of free money. I've heard a lot of reasons why people purposely don't do it. They don't want to take risks. They don't want to do this. This is just free money that you're giving. Even if you're putting in a very conservative and you're getting that 100% rate of return on the first year, you need to get your match. So please make sure you're at least getting this match that's there. Now, sometimes it starts out with really good intentions. Maybe you start off as a federal employee and you're really tight for money. Very understandable that you put a lower number in. You just can't put it in because you need to pay bills. You need to live. I'm not talking about go out and have a good time. I'm talking about put food on the table and a roof over your head. And that can be very tight. And so you start off very low with the intention of coming back at some point in the future, but then you forget to do it and you never do it. So please, if you can, get that in there, get that 5% match. That's very important. Okay. And the other area that you really want to be able to look at on this that sometimes people miss that full match is that they don't have their contributions going out over all 26 pay periods. And if you don't have it going over all 26 periods, you're not going to get the full match. So say you stop at 20 pay periods and that next 6 you have a bigger paycheck for the end of the year, you're not getting a match. So you're missing out on some free money from the government. So definitely check that out. That's another big thing that's there. Number 3 is looking at your distributions or retirement risk level is different than the risk level that you have when as an employee. These are two completely styles of life. And what I mean by that, when you're younger and you're an employee, you're accumulating money. You can take more risk. You're growing in that portfolio. And when you're a retiree, you're having distributions. So you can't treat the retirement TSP as an employee TSP. They're completely two different ways you have to look at money. And it's even just looking at the distributions that you have coming in. It's easy to get money into the TSP as an employee because it's just out of your paycheck, but distribution from your TSP can be very complex. So that treating them the same is not the right way to be able to do this. I'm not saying you have to take it out of the TSP. We do prefer that, and it's not just to us and go anywhere, but it's really looking at making sure that you have the comfort and you have the access to money that the distributions from the TSP can make it a little bit more complex. So just watch out that. So we see that sometimes people don't change how they're looking at their TSP once they go into retirement. Number 4 is not having your allocation meet your volatility risk level. And what we mean by this is that if you're a conservative person and your TSP is very aggressive, they're not aligned, and vice versa. If you can take a lot of risk, but your portfolio is very conservative, you're missing out on a lot of opportunity. Now, how much is this really? Well, we see a lot of times when people are about ready to retire that their TSP might be worth, say, $1 million. That's either under, maybe a little bit over, but $1 million is very common to see that at retirement. If you're missing 1% on that $1 million, that's $10,000 a year or $800 a month that you're missing for every 1% that you're not aligned to the volatility risk that you could potentially take. So that could be a lot of lost money on a regular basis just because your risk level isn't aligned. And that's because you're not watching this on a regular basis. Another reason why we see this is because people are too much in the G fund for conservativeness. For me, and the way I think about investments is a TSP is a long-term investment. You should be able to have a little bit more risk, but you want your safety outside of the TSP, and that's where that safety and security of like a G fund should type of be. I know you can only get the G fund in the TSP. What I'm saying is maybe having a little bit more cash type of assets or conservative assets outside of the TSP in case emergency happens, not in a long-term vehicle. So that missed opportunity is one of those big things. Number 5 is over reliance on the lifecycle funds. And what I mean by this is that the lifecycle funds are great vehicles when you're younger because their risk aligned is very aggressive and very growth oriented to get that growth that you need on the TSP. But as you get closer to retirement, the life cycle funds change their risk cycle very uniquely. They actually load up a lot on that G fund, which isn't normally that good. Now, the G fund can be good, it's very safe, but if you're going to be in retirement for, say, 30 years, you could be too conservative and it might not be aligned. Going back to that last one, number 4, that allocation's not matched up. So you really want to be able to look at what your portfolio is doing, and over relying on those life cycle funds can actually be a little bit bad on those different areas. Another thing is that I do like the life cycle funds if you're not going to be watching your portfolio that often, or you're not relying on somebody that's giving you professional guidance to tell you where to be able to do this, because it does give you a good mix, but sometimes that mix doesn't always match what you really want to be able to do on that side. While I just mentioned that life cycle can be used as a vehicle if you're not going to be watching your portfolio for a while or the TSP for a while, we really don't suggest that. And that's where number 6 comes in, is ignoring your TSP. This is probably one of the biggest investments you're going to have in your lifetime. You need to watch it. You need to be making sure that it's doing what you're supposed to be doing. And there's a lot of factors on why you should be doing it. But we do see people that haven't looked at their TSP, either their allocations, their beneficiaries, or whatever, in years. So you need to be watching this. You should be watching it on a quarterly basis, but at least on an annual basis at the bare minimum. Take a certain period of time. If it's when you're in open season in November, or at the beginning of the year and you're just looking at a fresh start in the year, whatever period of time, you really want to be looking at that TSP at least once a year to make sure it's still aligned with what you want to be able to do for yourself. So that's a really big one. Number 6 is ignoring the TSP. Number 7 is not taking advantage of the TSP loan. Now, I'm not suggesting you start taking out a TSP loan and start buying stuff that you shouldn't be getting, you shouldn't be affording, to have a better lifestyle. That's not what I'm saying. But a TSP loan is an extremely good vehicle if you're doing a couple things. One, you need to get out of debt. Let's say you're at a 29% interest rate and you're struggling with debt. The TSP loan could be a great vehicle to get out of that debt because it's a guaranteed loan and it's a very low interest rate. You also might look at that TSP loan when you're looking at a short-term debt vehicle, not a long-term debt, not a very long period unless you're buying a real estate or a house, but something like maybe you're looking at a car. And it just makes sense to get that TSP loan instead of a car loan that might be 7, 8, 9%. Maybe you can get a lower rate on that TSP loan, and it makes financial sense to do this. Again, you're meshing a long-term investment vehicle with debt. So use this very cautiously, but sometimes it can be the best vehicle for you to get you into the right situation on a short-term basis and not necessarily on a longer-term basis. Number 8 is a pretty big one. It's underutilizing your TSP for tax strategies. When we're talking about this, the question is really traditional or Roth. And it's a big question that you have to be looking at. But a lot of people don't know what or how to be able to look at this. Now, for our perspective, we look at the lifetime tax implications of a client, not necessarily the annual. And meaning that a lot of people look at their taxes of how much are you going to be paying in or how much are you getting back when you do your tax returns. That's irrelevant to us. We're looking at the lifetime amount of how much tax you're going to pay, and should you be in a Roth or traditional on a short and long-term basis. And it's not just the taxes that are on this decision factor of a traditional versus Roth. There's a lot of other factors that could be coming into play of why a traditional or Roth. But this is a very big thing that we see a lot of times. People don't understand what they should be doing, so they guess, or they say, but if I put it into that traditional, I'm going to get a bigger check when I get my refund, so it's a better deal for you. Not necessarily, because on a long-term basis, especially because you're a pension, you could be paying a lot higher taxes or be in a higher tax bracket, and you don't want to be paying that in a longer term period of time. So we see this a lot, that people don't understand taxes on their TSP, so they just guess on what that should be. This is an area that you really need to get some professional help on the tax and also the investment side and account strategy to what to be able to do this, both on a short and long-term basis to make sure it's good for you. So this is an area that I highly recommend getting some extra support, because there's some professionals out there that can really help make this decision easy for you. I mean, you can go out and study and do all of the things you need to be able to do, but most people don't understand all of the aspects of the tax on the short and the long-term basis. So very big one on underutilizing the tax benefits of the TSP. Number 9 is another really big one, and this one is something that you really have to look at as far as where's the benefit for you. We see this over and over again, that people are told to do something and it's really bad advice from coworkers. And number 9 is overfunding your TSP when you're either younger or not financially secure. And what we mean by this is that most federal employees, especially when they're younger and they're getting into federal service, are told to max out their TSP, put as much money as you possibly can into your TSP. And that can be very bad advice. And the reason is because you aren't financially secure at this point. You have life. Maybe you have kids or buying a house, or you're struggling with debt, and you need to not put things towards your retirement that may be decades in the future, but really get yourself on a good ground footing. Now, there's tons of videos out there. If you don't buy a coffee and if you save this much money per month, you'll be a mega millionaire by a certain age. Who cares? You need to live your life and be able to make sure you're paying your bills and a very good, strong financial structure first before you start looking at this. Now, you definitely need to be doing that 5% match. I'm not saying don't do that unless you financially can't, but then get up to that 5% match as soon as possible. But don't try to max out your TSP from day one. Get that in there, and then you can increase it over time if it's the best vehicle tax-wise for you. But a lot of times what we see is people's money is tied up in their TSP and they can't get access to it unless it's from a TSP loan. But again, that's a last-ditch situation. They haven't built strategies around money and how different types of accounts have different access periods and those different types of things. So we really caution you when you're either financially struggling or when you're younger to be trying to max out your TSP. A lot of times we have to unwind this for people and say, hey, listen, here's free money that you can use to get out of a situation. I mean, we see people struggling with credit card debt and they're maxing out their TSP and they're not even realizing that they could take that money, get out of debt a lot quicker, and then start saving for the TSP because that debt is just hurting them in such different areas. So this is a big thing that we really want both younger and people that are not financially secure to take a look at their contributions and make sure they're only doing the match, and then build a very good, strong financial situation after that. Number 10 is believing cheaper is better. Now, we hear all of the time, TSP has no fees. This is a great thing. It's a phenomenal vehicle. No fees also means no help. And so you really have to be able to look at, is this better for you or not? Now, if you're highly educated on investments, you know what's going on, you feel very comfortable about this, and you can control behavioral things that happen, like the market collapsing, fear of a recession, loss in job, and all of these different types of things, you feel very comfortable with that, yeah, maybe that is better for you, okay? But sometimes you need to get that professional guidance, and it's worth paying for that to do that. Now, there's been a lot of studies that have come out there that said that the value of a financial advisor is greater than 3%. Now, that's not saying you're going to get a 3% better return, but they're saying that their value is that from all of the different types of things that can happen: asset allocation, rebalancing, tax strategies, behavior analysis. I actually have a link on this of a study that actually has multiple different studies that have been done showing that it's been over 3% on multiple studies showing that the value of advice. I'm not saying that an advisor is best for everybody, because for some people, the TSP at that price is great, but cheaper isn't always better. It's sort of when you buy anything. When you're looking at cheaper, sometimes cheaper is good, but it's not going to get you where you need to be. And so having some of that professional guidance can be really good for most people. Some people, it's accountability. Some people, it's different reasons or just understanding of what happens. We see a lot of times when we need to step in is because we make a recommendation of, hey, maybe reallocate a portfolio or something like this, and it never gets done. 6 months later, a year later, it still hasn't been done, which means you're losing that opportunity. As we talked about earlier, for every 1% on a million is 10,000 a year. That can be very costly. What's more costly, losing opportunity or getting a cheap price? And that's really up for you to decide, but this is one of the things that we see quite often as a misstep, that the belief that cheaper is better. So we just want to watch this. Okay, I want to give actually one more. So I'm going to give 11th one here, another misstep that we see, and this is a big one. I didn't want to announce this earlier, but I just want to be able to do this as a special bonus for all of these people that are actually watching all the way through this. It's securing your TSP. All right, there's a lot of ways to do it. One of the things that the TSP does have is multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. You can set this up on your TSP. We do highly advise this because, again, this is a very important vehicle for you. So if you haven't set up the two-factor authentication, please do. The more secure you can have on your TSP, the better. Okay, hopefully you stayed along for all 11 of these. If you have, please hit that like button just so we can make more videos like this. And like I said, there'll be a lot of content that comes in, or videos that you've hopefully seen, or you can get a little bit more detail on these. If you need to go back and watch some of those different videos, you can. There's some resources that are below or in the notes section. Please take advantage of those. But hopefully this has been very helpful to look at some of the things that you should be looking at in the TSP. If you're doing all 11 of these things, great. We're really glad that you're taking advantage of them. And again, not necessarily doing them, but thinking about them. That's the big thing that we want to be able to do, is educating people that know things are out there, not necessarily that you have to do everything that we recommend. We want the best advice for everybody, so please get conflict-free advice that can help you and your family. Until next time, thank you very much, and we look forward to educating you in the next video.